Okay, so now we're going to flip the airplane over, and we're going to work on the top side. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the two aileron horns. So this is one of the aileron horns. As you can see, it's got a long base because this runs the width of the aileron cord and it stiffens the aileron so the aileron doesn't bend. And so the aileron horns go into slots that are pre-cut in the aileron, and the horn goes in just like that. And you push the horn down so that it's flush here. Okay, so we're going to do that with some glue. So what we're going to do is take our tube of welders, and we're going to flex the aileron to open this slot in the top of the aileron, and we're going to squeeze some glue into the slot. Okay, just a little bit of glue, doesn't have to be a whole lot. We're going to use the horn to wipe the glue off the top and get a little bit on the horn. Then we're going to push the horn into the slot. Horn should fit exactly in the slot, and if you turn this over, you should see the horn coming right to the bottom of the aileron and being flush there. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on the other side, and we'll have two aileron horns. Alright, now we're going to install the aileron servo and aileron servo horn. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our aileron servo is centered, or very, very close to centered. Okay, center that up. Then we're going to remove the aileron horn, which was installed in the package. Okay, and now we're going to install the aileron horn that we assembled, and I want to show you the orientation here. We want the head of the servo to be on this end, and we want the two wings of the aileron horn, and get that as close to centered as you can, to look just like that. Okay, then we're going to replace the center screw. Okay. Okay, now we'll center this up. What we're going to do is take our welder glue, of course. Okay, and this is the opening for the aileron servo. We're going to squeeze a little bit of welder glue, not a tremendous amount, just a drop or two on the front, and we'll spread it around to the sides, get a little glue in the hole there. Okay, just a little bit of glue inside. Okay, and then we're going to insert the servo. We'll feed the wire through. Just like that, and we'll push the servo down. Okay, that's how it looks from the bottom side. Okay, just like that, and we'll let that dry a little bit. Doesn't dry very long because the foam is actually pretty tight and holds it in pretty well. Okay, so we're going to start making control linkage for the airplane, and I'm going to show you a couple of things that you need to know, which are good general RC modeling skills. What we're going to do is take the steel wire, which is in your kit, and what we're going to do is we're going to make Z-bends. Now, a Z-bend is an extremely simple and reliable and lightweight way to connect a control rod onto a servo arm or onto a control horn. And a Z-bend is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bend shaped like a Z. So what I'm going to do is make sure you can see this on camera. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some needle nose pliers, and we're going to take our wire, and we're going to do very simple things here. What we're going to do is we're going to take bend in the wire. We're going to make sure that the wire is just barely there into the jaws of the plier. We're going to go just to the edge. So we're going to make a bend which is the same depth as the width of the plier jaws, just like that, 90 degrees. Okay, that's about 85. We'll tweak it a little tiny bit and make a 90-degree bend. Okay, there's the first half of a Z-bend. Now we're going to take our pliers and go just like that. Get you a good look at how the wire is sitting in there, just like that. Okay, and now we're going to bend again the other way, go 90 degrees, and there's your Z-bend. It's about 85. I'll tweak it a little tiny bit. There you go. So there's a Z-bend. Now the way that a Z-bend works is the Z-bend goes into a horn or arm like so. I'll do this on camera. I gotta find the spot. There we go. Like that. And it's a good, tight, rigid connection. It can't move back and forth. Okay? It can slide up and down, but that doesn't change the length of the horn of the push rod. So it's a really good, and it's actually a high precision connection on a joint like this where the hole's the right size. Okay? So there's a Z-bend. Now there are 4 push rods on this aircraft with 2 ends on each push rod, so we need to make 8 Z-bends, and we need each Z-bend to be about 1 1/4 or 1.5 inches long a piece. That's what we're going to do. We're going to show you what to make here. You've got enough wire in your kit that if you make some mistakes, it's no big deal. So we're going to trim this off at about 1.5 inches. And there is your Z-bend right there. I'll zoom in on it. And that's what we're going to make. Okay? So we need to make 8 of those, and you should have some wire left over. If you mess one up, don't worry, that's what the spare wire is for. Okay, so after a few minutes work, there are the 8 Z-bends, and we do have some wire left in case we needed to remake 1 or 2 and had a problem with 1 or 2. Alright? Okay, so we're going to assemble the aileron push rods. And while we're assembling the aileron push rods, we want to make sure that the ailerons are perfectly straight to the fuselage. And to do that, we're going to use some masking tape on the bottom of the fuse, like shown, to hold the ailerons perfectly straight with the fuselage. And so we'll leave this on until our aileron push rods are entirely completed. Alright? Okay, so here are the components we're going to assemble the aileron push rods out of. We have our 2 aileron push rods, which are pre-cut in your kit to the same length. Okay, they're the shortest push rods in your kit. We have 4 of our Z-bends we just made, and we're going to cut 4 pieces of heat shrink tubing, which are about 3/4 of an inch a piece. Okay, I think we'll move that away up here. Alright, so now we have all the pieces that we need to assemble our aileron push rods. Now, when we assemble the aileron push rods, we need to pick the proper, there you go, aim the camera at the arm. We need to use the proper holes in the aileron arm and also in the aileron control horns. So I'll show those to you. Alright, I'm going to take the fully assembled aircraft and show you the proper holes for the high-tech servos for most transmitters. Okay, so we have this hole right here, which is the rear center hole. This gives you the proper aileron differential for this particular aircraft, and it gives you the right amount of throw when it is paired up with the top hole in the control horn on the aileron. Now, what using the top hole of the control horn does for you is it minimizes the amount of slop in the aileron. We want to use, if possible, a hole location which is up at the top, provided we have enough throw. This is why we do matching arms and horns for the aircraft, so that we get the throw that we need for 3D flight while still minimizing the play, so that we have good, precise control response and centering. So there's a good look at how the setup should be when it is finished. And now we're going to recreate it on the aircraft in progress. So what we do is we take our Z-bends. When you insert the Z-bend into plywood arm, you may have to rotate it once or twice, and it drops in. That gives you a very, very snug installation. Make sure you can see this on camera. Now we'll go to the horn. We're going to put this through the top hole, and we just push it through, and it should be very, very snug. Okay, just like that. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our push rod and we're going to slide 2 of the pieces of heat shrink tubing over it, and we're going to slide the heat shrink tubing up the rod so that it covers the wire, just like so. Alright, I'll zoom in so you can get a look at that. Okay. Alright, and next thing we're going to do is shrink the heat shrink tubing and apply a little CA to those joints, and they'll be done. So let me get the heat gun and we will show you how to shrink this. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got our aileron push rod with our Z-bends and our heat shrink tubing. So we need to heat the heat shrink tubing, but we don't want to point a source of heat at our foam. Foam won't take heat, and you'll burn the surface of it and ruin the paint. So what we need is we need to protect the surface of the foam. So I have a little tool that I use for this when I build my foamies. It's really high tech. It's just a piece of wood with a notch cut in it, and the notch just fits over the horn like that, and that allows me to point heat gun at the heat shrink tubing. And shrink it right up. Without harming the foam. Okay, and we're also going to do the same thing up here on the other end, so I just slip my piece of wood in there. Okay. And it shrinks up. Okay. And then I'm just going to add a little drop of thin CA to lock everything together. There we go. Drop of thin CA. A little bit dropped off on the wood. That's okay. Come down to this end and we'll add a drop of thin CA, and that'll work its way inside the heat shrink tubing and lock everything together. Alright, one aileron push rod is done. We make all the push rods on this airplane the same way. We do both aileron push rods this way, and then when it comes time to make the elevator and aileron push rods, we'll do those the same way. Okay, so we have both of our aileron push rods completed, and now we can remove the masking tape that was holding our aileron straight for us. Okay. Lower fuselage. So here is our upper fuselage that we hinged the rudder on earlier, and I want to show you a piece of material here. When you're pulling foam out of the fuselage, this piece right here is the piece that we remove to make room for the aileron servo. Now, aileron servos come in different shapes and sizes. We've already shown you a couple of different servos you can use. We've made a generic cutout here. Okay, this is a starting cutout for most servos, but you'll need to modify it a little bit to fit your particular aileron servo so that it has room to move. So we're going to take our upper fuselage and we're going to tab it in to the airplane, and we're going to work the rudder around the elevator here. So we're going to push all the tabs into place. Okay. Okay. And once we have all that in place, I can show you how the aileron servo fits. And so what we can see when we push the aileron servo like so, there's a little bit of interference up here, so we're going to take our X-Acto knife and we're going to clearance this hole a little bit for the servo. Okay. Okay, what we're going to do is take our knife and just make this slot a little bit larger here. Just a little bit. So that our aileron arm has full room to swing on the HS45 servo. And if your servo is a little bit different shape, you'll have to look and just make sure you don't need to remove any little bit of foam on yours. Alright, so now that we've modified that cut for the aileron servo just a little bit as necessary for our servo, we're going to take our welder's glue and we're going to apply welder's glue to the horizontal fuselage, and this time we'll put it around the tabs as well. Okay. Okay, on all the mating surfaces. Alright. Now we'll join these fuselages together. Got to work the rudder around the elevator. Okay. We'll slide these fuselages together. Okay. We'll get good contact between them. All right. Now we're going to pull this back out. Okay. And we'll put a little extra welder's adhesive on the joint on the horizontal fuselage. This is a critical joint. Just a little bit extra. Make sure this joint is good and strong. And now we can install everything permanently. The tabs in the slots, it's pretty much impossible to get this wrong. We'll just push the upper fuselage firmly into the tabs. Okay. Okay. And now we'll allow that to dry. Okay, so now we can assemble our motor mount depending how we want to mount our motor. Again, if we're using a motor that mounts using mounting lugs like that, or with a metal X mount, what we're going to do is we're going to take our welder's glue and we're going to put welder's glue on our foam part of our motor mount, and we're going to take the wood part and we're going to have the etching lines facing out so we can use those to center our motor, and we're going to push these together and we're going to move this around to distribute the glue all over both surfaces. Okay, then we're going to let them dry for 10 or 15 seconds. Okay, then we're going to push them back together, make sure they're lined up, and we'll let that dry for a few minutes. Okay. Alternately, if we're going to use the lightweight mounting system and we're going to mount our hacker on the phenolic fiberglass mount, what we need to do is take our welder's glue and we need to put a bead of welder's on the back side of each mount leg. Okay. Right. Then we need to take our hacker motor mount. We need to press it onto the foam mount. Then we're going to pull it off and let that dry for 10 or 15 seconds. Okay. And once it's dried a little bit, we'll just stick it right back on where we had it. Okay. And then we'll let that one dry for a few minutes. Okay.